If you enjoy listening to adventure stories, then you should visit thedihedral.com. You will find stories from other members of the community and read about climbing, life, and the outdoors. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Let's connect and climb on!
Climb on! Roll!
Hey guys, welcome back to the Dihedral podcast. Today you're listening to Casen, Carrot, and our special guest today, Barclay. She is an American Ninja Warrior, and Carrot is going to tell you a little more about that.
Yeah, this is actually our first formal introduction to one another. Barclay and I just randomly bumped into each other at the climbing gym this morning without planning it or anything. We'd planned to meet on tonight's talk. But yeah, we bumped into one another and got familiar with each other a little bit. So Barclay, let me just first start off by saying it's nice to finally meet you. Thanks for coming to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me out. And it was awesome to run into you at the climbing gym. That was totally unexpected. And I was excited to just come here and be like, yeah, I just came from the climbing gym. And then you already know that. So
here we are. So for those of you who don't know Barclay, which is probably very few, let me just start off by saying that she's known globally as one of the world's premier athletes. She's a beloved ninja warrior, a level 10 gymnast, a writer, a poet, an unbelievably strong rock climber, and by all accounts, the world's most noted taco aficionado. So, Barclay, I thought we would start off, before we get into some of the more deep topics, with really tackling what is on everyone's mind, and that is what is the perfect taco?
Oh my God.
Like, we need to know shell. We need to know what's on it.
All right.
Grilled, like,
oh, okay.
If we're going to get a taco named the Barclay, what would it be?
Oh man. Okay, so it would have to be spicy.
All right.
All right, so some kind of spice, and it has avocado on it, 100%.
Yes.
It has barbacoa in it, like thinly sliced barbacoa, and maybe some like queso dripped across it in a flour.
Ooh, we're going flour.
Tortilla.
I like it.
Oh, yeah.
Bold.
Nice.
That's a bold
100%.
Are we talking like thin flour tortilla or like nice and fluffy? Like
I kind of somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Not thin, but not like pita, you know?
Yeah, totally.
That sounds really good, actually. So if there's any restaurants out there, restaurateurs listening, like that can be the Barclay. That can be on your menu. You heard it directly from her mouth.
If you want to sponsor me, that'd be cool.
That'd be amazing. So just a quick anecdote before we get started any deeper. I was writing Barclay. We were just talking to one another through email, trying to set everything up. And I asked her, what is the one food I can get you? Is there anything that would make you happy? And it was guacamole and tortilla chips. So.
100%. I am 100% Texan.
Oh, no doubt.
And proud.
Nice. Cool. So yeah, I mean, we just want to start, you know, we used all those descriptors earlier to give people a little bit of an insight into who you are, but who does Barclay say that Barclay is? Like, give us a little bit of an insight into what you would describe yourself as.
A couple of years ago, kind of changed the way that I view myself and the lens that I look through whenever I look at myself. I used to see myself whenever I was a teenager as a gymnast, and that was kind of it for me. That's where I held the most value when I presented myself to others, is, you know, my status as an athlete and my accolades. And since then, I had a lot of self-worth issues once I retired from gymnastics, because I really didn't ever value the other good things about myself, such as, you know, my empathy and my desire for justice, and my desire to do what I can for oppressed peoples, and you know, my adventurous and silly sides and all of that. So really how I would describe myself is a deep thinker and deep feeler and an adventurous spirit.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, the next question that we had for you was, tell us about the American Ninja Warrior. But I mean, that's cool to hear that, like, that might be what everyone knows you as, but that's not necessarily what you define yourself as. I went through a period in my life. I played football like for a long time, like through my entire high school, years. And from coming from a small Texas town, like you find that everyone is so invested into that sport. Everyone loves that sport, and it's such a big deal, especially in high schoolers, for high schoolers. And so whenever I wanted to quit to pursue rock climbing, I found myself in that same kind of conundrum of like, man, like, who am I almost? But it's like, you know, you look back on that and you're like, that's kind of, you know, it's silly because you're so much more than that. You're so much more than just that one thing. But on that note, would you describe American Ninja Warrior to somebody that maybe doesn't know what it is?
Yeah, American Ninja Warrior is a reality obstacle-based TV show. And it's not like Wipeout, because usually the...
Man, that's a good reference.
That's such a good show.
Usually the first thing people say is like, oh, like Wipeout? And you're like, no.
It's not that.
It's not, because, you know, on American Ninja Warrior, you have a specific skill set that is needed, whereas on Wipeout, you know, anybody can get on and compete, and you know, most everyone's gonna do terrible. But on Ninja Warrior, you actually have a shot, because you can train for it. You kind of know what to expect every season. There are some obstacles that are gonna be the same. Most of the time, they're upper body obstacles. You need a lot of upper body strength, and that's why climbing is so pertinent to my training for ninja. Is so much of what I do on the course is grip strength. And so it's a lot of swinging around. It's a lot of, you know, hanging for dear life on your fingertips. And there's a couple of lower body obstacles. There's like an agility obstacle on at least, you know, every course. But for the most part, it's all upper body.
So on the topic of Ninja Warrior, tell us a little bit about like your accolades, like in the sport. Like, what's the thing you're most proud of? Maybe.
I think what's very unique about me is I'm 5'0", and I think our tallest competitor is 6'6". So I'm competing on the exact same course. There are no adjustments made for me as somebody, you know, 18 inches taller than me.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm the shortest athlete on American Ninja Warrior in 11 seasons to have ever beat the warped wall, which is the most iconic obstacle on American Ninja Warriors, the warped wall. So I'm the shortest athlete that has ever completed it. It used to be Casen, if you guys are familiar.
Yeah.
She was the first woman to hit a buzzer, first woman up the warped wall, first woman to hit a city finals buzzer, and you know, the inspiration to me for why I came onto the show. She was the shortest. We're exactly the same height. But then once I came onto the show, they raised the wall 6 inches. So, with that being said, I'm the shortest to ever make the 14.5 foot, which is our current size warped wall.
Dang.
So for those of you who don't know what a warped wall is, imagine just running into the side of a building and somehow going up 14 feet when you're 5 foot tall.
It's almost closer to like, I don't know skateboard references for a half pipe.
Yes.
Half pike?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of almost like running up a half pike that's steeper and 14.5 feet tall.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Without a
10 feet
skateboard.
taller than you. Yeah,
No
it's
skateboard.
Crazy. Yeah, there's no wheels involved.
Yeah.
So just in time for you, they raised it 6 inches.
Yeah, they raised it another 6 inches, and it was already kind of, you know, I think at the time that they raised it, maybe 3 or so women had gotten up it, and they were like, oh, okay, we got to make it harder. You know, and I was really surprised by that,
Yeah.
but that just means I have to train harder and be more explosive and be more powerful than the people I'm competing against. And so there's, you know, I'm the shortest person who's ever completed the warped wall. And then I'm also the shortest competitor who's ever gotten through the spider jump in Vegas. If you guys are not familiar, there's a trampoline, a huge gap over water. So you have to jump over this, you know, this pool of water, and you basically land in a jumping jack position, you know, or snow angel position, you know, completely spread out. And I'm actually, my arm span is not long enough to wedge myself in there. So I can land with one hand flat on one side, and I'm in basically like a middle split with my legs, and then my other hand I'm on my fingertips because I don't actually have the length to do it without using my fingertips. So that's probably what I'm the proudest of, because the precision for that is a lot harder than just working the power to be able to get up the warped wall for me.
It's unreal.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I saw you competed in a dyno comp recently.
Oh, that did not go well.
It didn't go well. I would think that you must have done great after hearing something like that. So are dynos something you look forward to while you're climbing, or not necessarily?
I enjoy them, but I don't feel comfortable on them yet, unless it's like straight up or like, because the ones to the side, of whenever I do a dyno and I catch sideways and my legs swing up, I get afraid.
Yeah,
like I get scared because I'm not used to that motion, especially because like in gymnastics you don't ever swing sideways. So I always, especially when I first started training ninja and there's some side to side swinging, I felt like I was breaking the rules, like, because gymnastics your technique is just drilled into you, and I had to deconstruct so much of my technique I'd learned from gymnastics to be a good ninja.
That's wild. So you had to unlearn all these years of education and
yes,
practice and just over and over.
I'm still trying to break like the muscle memory on some types of movement.
So I wanted to ask you a couple questions, just going back to when you were into gymnastics. You were level 10. That's basically as good as somebody can get. Is that true?
Not as good as you can get. There are 10 levels, and then instead of calling it level 11, because it sounds kind of lame, I guess, they call it elite. Okay. And that's like the national team level. That's Olympic level.
Okay.
And that was my goal, not necessarily going into gymnastics, but especially after like a year or two of training, that was what I set my goal at. But I didn't start gymnastics till I was 12. Which is, you're already like an old woman if you're 12 years old and starting gymnastics. Right. So I moved up. By the time I was 17, I think, I was a level 10. So 5 years later, I was a level 10. I was competing against girls who had been in gymnastics for like 16 years.
That's amazing. You were natural.
Yeah, I mean, but I also just loved it. And I think the fact that I not only put in a lot of time and effort into it, but I also helped pay for it financially, because gymnastics is a very expensive sport, and we couldn't always afford it. So, I was like 12, 13, 14, and I was like walking dogs and babysitting and paying for the months that I could afford. And so I think having to invest not just time and, energy and then everything that comes with playing a sport, but also having to invest time and my own money into it made me work really hard.
Yeah. That's really great. And Casen and I have talked about this before and written about this before. Both of our parents are just like, you're going to need to work. Like, you can't just have life handed to you. And so I think that's a real homage to parenting in general. I mean, just having to do that, I imagine at the time it might have not have been your favorite thing to have to work to do gymnastics, but that's just life sometimes.
It was worth it for me. It was absolutely, I never felt angry about it, or like I didn't deserve to have to work when I was so young. But, it was what I was passionate about, and so I was willing to do anything I had to do. So, because I almost lost gymnastics at one point because my parents couldn't afford it anymore, and it was really cool because the owners of the gym were just like, you know what, like, it's okay, you pay us back when you can, type of thing. And that's when I started working just little odd jobs. And then
what were some of the jobs?
I literally would go door to door when I was like 12, 13 or so, and I would ask people if they needed their dogs walked. I would ask if they needed help painting, and then eventually I started babysitting, and then when I was 14 I started coaching gymnastics. I started kind of doing like an apprenticeship, and obviously you can't get paid when you're 14 years old, but they knocked off some of my tuition rates for the work I was doing until I was 15, and I could actually legally be paid.
That's great. So you've been coaching kids for a long time, not only in gymnastics, but now in
Yeah, so
American Ninja?
I mean, 11 years now because I'm 25. I don't do that as a full-time job, but with Ninja, I'll do private lessons, or a huge part of the traveling that I do is when new Ninja gyms or current Ninja gyms are doing open like open houses or grand openings and stuff like that, and they bring out a pro ninja or two, and we lead some classes and, you know, get people excited about the new location or stuff like that. So I'm still coaching. It's just not an everyday thing like it used to be.
You enjoy it.
I love it. I love kids so much.
That's so cool. So you know, when you're a kid and you're working hard, you have this passion for gymnastics. Where does that come from? Like, where do you think, can you look back to a point in your life where you're like, oh, that's the reason? Or is it just something that you were born with? And then also, is that something that you try and instill in these like new kids that you're, you know, hanging out with and trying to coach?
Yeah, I mean, I know exactly, you know, I can pinpoint everything that you just said pretty easily. So I thought gymnastics was circus training, and I wanted to be a trapeze artist.
So whenever you decided to try American Ninja Warrior, were you just like, oh, that looks kind of like trapeze, I should go try that? Or were you like, what's the story of trying American Ninja Warrior?
I actually tried trapeze first, finally. Before I found Ninja Warrior, I was looking for something else because I had retired from gymnastics when my senior year of high school, because I decided, you know, if I wanted to try for the Olympics, I'd need to stay in gymnastics another at least 2 or 3 years for the next Olympics. And then that would mean I need to do college gymnastics. And I was just kind of like, my body is tired, and I'd kind of lost that passion and drive that I had before due to some unfortunate like circumstances at my gym. And so I just decided to, you know, retire and just coach gymnastics. And I was looking for something to replace gymnastics, but I'm picky. And I tried parkour, but I hate running. And the parkour group that I was, you know, doing some trainings with, they did like a lot of running in between. Like they'd run to a spot and work on some different skills, and then we'd have to run again. And I was like, I just want to jump and flip and stuff. So I moved on. I tried trapeze, but there isn't really a good place to do trapeze on a regular basis in Houston. I had to go like out to Austin to try that. And so like I was just kind of like nonchalantly keeping my eyes open for something that might be interesting. But I was totally, I guess, settled in the idea of my athletic career's over. And I was only 18 or so.
Yeah.
I thought it was done. Like any exercising I was ever going to do again was just for my benefit. And frankly, I look very strong and cut and in shape whether or not I train or not. So like the motivation to like look strong wasn't there for me. And so I just got very complacent and unmotivated until I saw the show. It wasn't even the whole show. I had never seen the show before, but that clip of Casen went viral in 2014. I was spending the summer volunteering in South Africa, and like everybody I knew was posting this clip onto my Facebook page, but I couldn't see it because it was like not available in South Africa. That their YouTube, Ninja Warrior's YouTube channel wasn't. And so, I mean, I was there for like 2 or 3 months, and this whole time I'm getting these people, and I can only see their captions. They're like, you're the same size, you have the same background, you could do this. And I was like, what could I do? Like, I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. And then I got home and I watched those, and I was like, dang, that looks so cool. But I didn't realize that normal people can apply for TV shows. Like I've never grown up watching TV. Like I didn't know, you know, how people were selected for stuff like that. So even though I thought it was cool, I just never initially considered it as an option or something I wanted to look into. I was just like, that looks really cool. I know I would love it if I did it. And then I think like a year later, I was kind of like taking care of some of my cousins. They're like little teenagers, and they were like, hey, do you want to go to a ninja gym? And I was like, what in the world? Like, it sounds like such a foreign concept. Is that like the axe gyms where you like
true.
throw ninja
That
stars?
sounds like a 7-year-old would invent. Where it's just
Yeah,
like, you know,
yeah, you're like throwing ninja stars and like hanging from the ceiling and stuff. Like, I had no idea what they meant, and they were like, well, don't you know who Casey Catanzaro is? And like all this stuff. And by then I had forgotten her name. Like I had no idea what they were talking about. But we got in the car. I drove over because I didn't even know that ninja gyms existed. Yeah. I had no idea. Like, but we put in the GPS. We went over there, and the first day I was there, I made it up the salmon ladder. I think it was like my second attempt. The first, I made it up through the spider jump, and the warped wall really scared me. Like, looking up at it is so intimidating, and so I didn't even try it that day. But I was like, this is so cool.
So immediately, like you were like,
yes,
this is for me.
I mean, it was an immediate click. Like, I knew I wanted to do it to exercise, but I didn't think I wanted to do it like and compete. Because for me, I'm a huge perfectionist when it comes to athletics. So competing when I don't feel ready, like today, and the competition that I was doing today, I did not feel ready. But I'm trying to push myself to do things when I don't feel ready. And so I got into a point where I kind of knew some of the basics. You know, I got up the warped wall the first day I ever trained it. I got up it, and I didn't know how big of a deal that was until the owner was like, there's only been one woman in this gym that's ever done this before. And I was like, oh, no, I didn't know that. That's wow. Like, it kind of made me realize that I had more natural talent and ability and potential than I had realized before. And then so I started coming back more, and the owner of the gym talked me into my first competition, and I was like, did not want to do it because I was like, I'm not ready, but I did it anyways, and I ended up qualifying for the nationals for the National Ninja League, and qualified for season 1 of the National Ninja League finals on my first competition. So then I was like, but that is when I was like, there's no turning back. Like that first competition, like I loved it.
That's
and
great.
And so there really was no turning back for me.
That's awesome.
So how much do you think that gymnastics translated into a successful ninja?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea like how I would do without gymnastics, like, because so much of the body awareness, even though I had to deconstruct a lot of the motions, like when I first started training ninja, I was pointing my toes on everything, and I was having a hard time like letting my knees bend to swing through and just being loose and fluid. It was really hard for me to kind of loosen everything up. But the body awareness, and there have been a lot of times I know that what I learned from gymnastics has kept me from getting really seriously injured, like on falls, because I know how to fall super safely. Yeah. I know where I am if I fall and I'm upside down, like I know how to save it. And especially when it comes to swinging, like I have a huge advantage on knowing how to swing really efficiently and really powerfully on anything. Yeah. Which I really love that aspect that I can teach to others who didn't have the opportunity to do gymnastics.
Yeah, definitely. Man, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you can't help as a spectator but to notice just the people who support you, and not only the people who support you, the people in the stands and the commentators, like they lose their minds every time.
Lose their minds.
Like, I'll watch clips that I've seen before, and I'm just like, come on, Barclay, you got this. And so I was going to ask, as a competitor, when you're up there and you're ready to to like hit the first obstacle. Is any of that affecting you at all? Do you even have any awareness of the people or like what's going on behind the scenes?
Well, it's I can hear some things. So I choose my sideline very carefully. We get to choose who's on the side, like cheering us on.
Mm-hmm.
And I always want, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jody Avila. He's a 6'6". Big Dog Ninja is his kind of his ninja name, and I can hear him.
Okay.
Like I can't usually hear like anything else, but his voice is. I train with him, and so like his voice is so unique. Like it's just I hear him, and he's surprisingly the person I want to hear, even though he's 6'6". So our beta is completely different, but he knows what I need to do because he trains with a lot of little people, you know? Yeah. So, like his wife is shorter than I am.
Okay.
And he's got a 7-year-old who's nearly as tall as me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he knows how to not give beta that's unique to him to other people.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
So yeah, like I can hear him and just, I can feel the love and support from everyone. And it fuels me. Like, even though I can't hear them during my run, I can see them. And there are certain times where I'll finish an obstacle and I look and I look at my people because they really are just like a driving force. And like I've thought about running the course as fast as I can and not taking any breaks before. But I think that would steal so much of the experience from me because I love pausing and feeling everything.
I was just going to ask that because after you make it through one obstacle, when you get on like the platform for the next obstacle, you can see like there's just like a deep breath, nothing's rushed. It's almost like in climbing when you're at a decent spot to shake out and like do things like this, but there clearly is so much more for you.
Oh yeah.
To that. And like when you say like you can feel the love that's kind of coming from your sideline, like that's really important.
It just feels like you're being enveloped by like every person that loves you and that you love like at the same time. And you know, I've thought about it and there have been no other times in my life like but on the ninja course where like I can see like all of the people that are most important to me. Not everyone, but like a huge majority. I mean, my family always comes. Yeah. Like stuff like that. Like I can see my family, I can see my best friends all at the same time, and you're the only person up there. In gymnastics, you're the only person on floor, you're the only person on beam, but 4 events are going on at the same time no matter what. So there's cheering going on the whole time, but you can't hear your people. When you're on an American Ninja Warrior course, people are only supporting you. And so it's overwhelming. It's like if you're not prepared to feel that much love, like it can be, I'm sure it would be hard to focus on the obstacles because you're just like, oh my God, you guys love me so much.
Take
like,
a second to cry here.
Yeah, I've started crying on the starting platform before.
God,
like
great.
I like tearing up and I was like, oh gosh, I need to like get rid of these tears. But yeah, I mean when and the feeling on that course is literally unlike anything I've ever experienced before, and I think I'm a little addicted to it. Yeah. Because when I'm on that course, I feel like I have like a million bees inside of my body. They're not stinging me. They're
happy bees.
Just happy bees.
Just
yeah.
buzzing.
And like I'm on fire and I'm getting struck by lightning. It's like all of the things. It's just like it's just sensory overload. And then you're supposed to be very technical and precise while you're just completely overwhelmed. And then you're also just like feeling all of these feelings and like gratitude for all of these people who are loving you and supporting you, whether you're in the air on the course or you're in the water.
Yeah, what a unique experience. I really can't think of something else where you have that much going on and really maybe not that much at stake in the grand scheme of things, but we put pressure on ourselves to succeed. And so to have all that going on where you have that many people who are involved directly with you, it's just, I can't think of another situation that's like that.
Yeah, like what is your strategy for handling all that? Like what are the things that you're telling yourself, or like what are you trying to do, you know, when you get up to that obstacle and you're trying to balance those feelings before you grab that first rung?
I think it's really similar to climbing in that way because we get to look at the course beforehand, which is different than a lot of climbing comps when you just turn around and see what you're about to do and then you have to do it. We get to see it. We get to do rules a couple hours before, and then we get to watch our friends go. So we get to learn a lot. So when I'm actually on the course and I'm looking at the next obstacle I'm about to do, I'm repeating the most important parts of my next move. Like, so for like balance, for instance, almost every agility obstacle on American Ninja Warrior, you have to go fast. There's not really like a balancy technical, like you're standing there and wobbling. If you stop, you're in the water. So I'm always repeating to myself, chest forward, like lead with your chest to keep the momentum going forward, because if you lean back at all, you're done. So chest forward, arch of the foot is where I'm wanting to put my stumbling a little bit. So when you're running an agility obstacle, you want the middle of your foot to hit almost 100% of the time. I mean, nearly 100% of the time. You don't want to be on the balls of your feet, because if it's something that spins and you're on the bottom ball of your foot, you're going to spin it right out from under you whenever you make your next step. So there's like all these little things I'm repeating to myself depending on the obstacle. And that kind of helps me not think about the lights, the cameras that are, I mean, they'll bring a camera up within inches of your face when you're on the starting platform. Thankfully, they don't do that when you're on the obstacles. They don't get that close. But I mean, I've been on the starting platform before, and I'm looking at the course and I'm planning out and I'm visualizing, and then a camera just goes right in front of my face.
Right,
and so, but you get used to that. It's like, I don't even see them.
Yeah.
I don't, it's like when I'm on the course, thankfully, I'm not thinking about the cameras or the millions of people who will watch after it's over. I'm just very present.
Yeah. So you have all these people on the sideline who love you like insane amounts.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
So, but you also have this heart that wants to help people who maybe don't have that. Maybe they're in a worse place off than you are, or maybe they just don't have a support group around them, things like this. Does that play into that at all?
It plays into a lot of, I don't know if you know this, but on American Ninja Warrior, they have kind of like story packages is what they call it. It's, whenever they're showing the viewers like who we are as people before we run. And sometimes we get a lot of, I guess we get to give feedback and talk with the producers about what we would like for them to share about us. And a huge part of that is what you submit in your application video when you're applying for the show. And so I've, especially the past couple of years, started being more intentional about thinking, what do I want to use my platform for, since I have one? I mean, I think one of the episodes this year that was like our most viewership was like 5 mil. And I was like, okay, what do I want to impart about myself or to help other people to 5 million potential viewers? And then you also have to think about the fact that there are reruns, and then it goes online, and it has the potential to be seen forever.
Yeah. Millions.
So with that, it kind of reminds me of Spider-Man, like with great power comes great responsibility. And so I've been thinking a lot about, every episode potentially that I'm competing in, I could have a story package. You don't always, but so what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
And I've been getting more and more into activism, and over the past, 7 years or so, before I started getting into ninja, I was really, researching a lot about human trafficking, especially like sex slavery. And I think whenever I started learning about it, there was an estimated 28 million women, children, and men that are trafficked, whether it's labor or sex slavery, in the world, which is more than during the African slave trade. And so it's crazy to me to think, people think slavery is dead, but it is. It's actually right now in 2019, it's estimated by the Polaris Project, which is a really good anti-human trafficking organization. They estimate there's 40 million people that are currently enslaved in the world today. And so the way that I've chosen to begin kind of combating that is, there's a lot of steps that before I got to where I am, and a huge one is just personal research. I do a lot of research and do a lot of seminars where I go and I learn from people who are working in these fields. But one of the most horrendous forms of trafficking is child soldiering. And so I got involved with this nonprofit called Exile International, which they're not the people who save the kids from being child soldiers, but they're very involved with their rehabilitation. And so they put them into school. They have counseling multiple times a week and different types of therapies. And then they have vocational programs or an option of going to a university, which, and this nonprofit's mainly in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, or Uganda. And so I got involved with them, and I was just kind of monetarily sponsoring and doing kind of word of mouth stuff, kind of like today, like just talking about it, because a lot of people don't know what's going on, not only on the other side of the world, but Houston is actually a pub. I just said pub. I meant hub. Houston is a
No, it's all good.
Houston is actually a hub in the United States for human trafficking, and I-10 is one of the most used freeways for transporting women, children, and there are some men, it's a small percentage, but women and children especially are transported on I-10 on a daily basis, and nobody really knows that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's I think there's about 250,000 of those, of that 40 million, about 250,000 of those are kids who are abducted from their homes or their villages or wherever they are, and they're forced to learn how to fight and kill for various types of armies, rebel armies and stuff like that. Like when I was in Congo in April earlier this year, 2019, I went and I met with the leader of a nonprofit that actually saves the children, and they actually will negotiate with rebels to get the kids back, and or sometimes just sit down and talk with them, which sounded crazy to me. Like, how brave do you have to be to do that? But he told me that there were 95 rebel armies. They're all different. 95 rebel armies in Congo, which the DRC is about 3 times the size of Texas. So if you can imagine, like Texas, Texas times 3, and then 95 rebel armies. And then, the National Army. And then we asked how many of those rebel armies use child soldiers, and he said all of them.
What was the name of that nonprofit?
It was not in English,
okay,
but I can ask and get you
throw
that.
It up on the link and everything like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other one was did you say
Exile International.
Okay.
Yeah.
.org.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's admirable. I think you're right. Like, it's easy for somebody to get up and say, oh, I'm a really good athlete, I'm really good at this, look at me. But for you to take that time or that moment in the spotlight and say, it's really not about me at all. Like, it's about so many other things that are way bigger than all of us. That's admirable.
I mean, there's so many different causes, and if we all chose one, Are we all focused, or if we chose, this season, like, how about a couple of us talk about this, a couple of us talk about this? The change that we could do in the world is incredible. And no matter what anybody else is doing, like, that's what I want to spend my time in my life doing. And then there's also, everyone has influence outside of being on reality TV. We all have influence. I mean, you guys have influence with your podcast. Everyone, you don't have to be famous or even kind of famous like me to do that. And so I'm also trying to use conversations. I'm using my social media and just trying to boost the causes that matter most to me. And then, I eventually got to the point where I was like, none of this is enough. Like, I need to be doing more. And I decided to actually write about all of this because I love to read. I know so many people who love reading and love like autobiographies. And so I decided to write an autobiography through the lens of race and gender, my race, my gender, and tell my own story and kind of how I've gotten to the point and the research and education that I've tried to impart into myself, like just spending the time, because without actually educating ourselves, we're always, we don't know the truth.
Right.
If it's just hearsay, if you just hear what people are talking about. I mean, all the time I'm hearing I get pushback already, especially if I'm talking about racial issues. Especially like I was just talking on my social media about the Botham Jean murder and how Amber Geiger got convicted of murder and she only got 10 years. And following that trial, Botham Jean's neighbor right across the hall from him was murdered. And there was a lot of talk about it could have been retaliation, and I posted something about how wrong it was, and there were people pushing me back, just talking about how wrong it was and how it could have been retaliation. Right. Because they didn't want me insinuating that it was the police. But just like everybody else, police can be wrong, and police officers can be crooks, and it happens all the time that police officers kill people that they shouldn't have, right. People that weren't armed. And I'm not anti-police, but I'm anti-corrupt police. And so I'm really thankful for the research that I have done, because then when someone throws out a made-up statistic, I can send them a link.
Yeah,
I can send them a link. I can quote correct data, and that's very important to me.
And it takes courage. There's just so many people who are just about like social media numbers and looking good. It takes courage to speak up for things that you believe in.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about maybe the influence you've had from your parents. I know you guys are very close. I mean, you're just very close with your family, and they're always there to support you. Happen to be a big fan of Meemaw. I think the name is amazing. And maybe not just your parents, but how your grandparents and your parents and your siblings support what you're doing, not only on the athletic side of it, but also on the social justice side of it.
Yeah, I think it actually came as a huge surprise to people around me how much time and research I put into social justice and all of the various forms, because for a long time I was very quiet about it, because I wanted to feel confident in my knowledge and feel like I actually could speak on things. And I write about this in my book, actually, because I don't think it was just kind of a personal decision to be quiet on these issues for a long time. I think a lot of it had to do with feeling kind of kind of like a shrunken human, like taking up as little space as I possibly could, and taking, only speaking when I had to, because I felt very diminished for most of my life, until I was about 20. Actually, I was just quietly learning for a really long time. I think until I got angry enough about the world and about what was going on, and I think that's what caused me to start using the voice and using my privilege, because before then I felt just too afraid. And it wasn't so much about too afraid about what people would say to me, but too afraid that I was wrong, or too afraid to speak up just because of how people would see me or react to me. And I think for most of my life, I did not see myself as a privileged person because of my race. Or I guess more so, I didn't see my privilege as a white person because I felt very small, made to feel very small for being a woman for most of my life. I felt, like I was, always trying to stay out of the way. But definitely from reading, especially reading a lot of books by people of color, I learned that it shouldn't just be people of color fighting for their rights and, caring about these things. When I look through my social media, when a tragedy such as like Botham Jean happens, the majority of the people who are posting about it are Black people. I'm like, why don't I see white people also being outraged, right, and using their voice and posting about this? And that really got to me too. And so, but yeah, I lose followers when I post about this stuff, when I talk about this stuff. I definitely lose followers, but I hope that as they're leaving, that thought that I talked about, or what I was angry about, I hope it goes with them, and that it's something that nags at them and causes them to think, or maybe look up some of the statistics that they think they know, or
I think it does.
Yeah, it's fine with me if they go. I just hope that they take something with them.
As a teacher, when we teach, we understand that we're not going to necessarily change every student or have a huge impact, but I don't necessarily know if that's the goal, but we plant seeds, and sometimes those seeds can grow. And so as those people decide to click unfollow, they can't take that seed out of there. And so you're making an impact, even if it's a small impact. And then the people that are sticking with you, I think their compassion and their ability to listen and their love for you grows even more. And so now they may feel the courage to spread the word a little bit more. I think that it's unfortunate more people aren't using a platform, including something like us, to make a statement, not only in an entertaining way, but in a way that can make the world a better place. Because like you said, if we all just did a little bit more, we would all be a little bit better off.
There's a quote, and I can't remember. I probably got the numbers wrong. I can't remember who said it, but I heard, and it made an impact on me. You might know 1,000 individual people in your life, and they'll probably know 1,000 individual people in their life too. So you're one away from 1 million and 2 away from 1 billion, I think is the thing. Or maybe it's 3 away. I can't remember. Yeah. But basically the point is you can actually reach a lot more people than you really might think that you can. And if you've got 1,000 followers, and you know what I mean, and it spreads. It's that whole cliche, water droplet in the still lake. Right. But
yeah, the ripples are forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So let me say a couple of things, Barclay. One, but before we get going, I want to give you an opportunity to plug whatever you want. We know you got a book coming out soon enough that you're working on. I don't want to put any extra undue pressure on you, because also while you're writing this book, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to be competing and trying to dominate the world.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on it for a little over a year, and I'm trying to finish it within the next month and a half.
For those of you, which is everybody who aren't watching Barclay, she just looked at her watch. She was like, I'm trying to finish it.
I forgot what the date was. But yeah. So I mean, I don't have it to plug right now, but maybe just be looking for it, and you can keep up with me by following me on social media on Instagram, which is what I'm most active on. I'm Sparkly Ninja, and then on Twitter and Facebook, I'm just Barclay Stockett. And definitely, I like to update people on how it's going. Like, I think for some people, telling others that they're writing a book while they're writing it and it's unfinished is very scary, because then you have to finish it, which is exactly why I told everyone about
Smart
it. Because sometimes you're following someone and then they're like, here's my book, and they've got it already, like the cover's already done and they're posing with their book, and you're like, why? I never heard anything about this. But I've really tried to involve people, and I do like writing challenges, and this month I'm in a 30-day writing challenge, which I've already broken numerous times. But I have made immense progress, even though there have been a couple days I haven't kept with it. I'm trying to still every day, do something. But yeah, I mean, that's all I've got right now. Season 12, hopefully. I mean, we have to apply for American Ninja Warrior every year. No matter your veteran status on the show, you have to send in a 3-minute application video and do a written application. I think most of it for them is getting an update on anything that's changed over your life, so they know where they want to go with the stories and all of that. But should I be chosen for season 12, you guys can also keep up with me on the TV. So
That's great. So let me just say this before we let you go. I think it's a cute story, but on Instagram, Barclay is known as Sparkly Ninja, and I was maybe hoping that you could tell us the origin of that.
Oh yeah, it's a great story actually. So the pronunciation of my name is Barclay, but whenever I was coaching gymnastics, when I was like 14, I had kids that would call me Barkley, and they just kind of went with it from there. It sounded so close to Sparkly that I started being Coach Sparkly, and I was Coach Sparkly for forever. I've been Coach Barclay since then. I mean, some of them would call me Barclay, but a huge amount of my kids would just call me Sparkly, and so I started, answering to that. And then Ninja loves cute little nicknames that are just for Ninja, like Jody's like the big dog ninja, and then you've got like Captain NBC, Jamie Ron and stuff. And so they were like, what's your ninja name? And I was like, oh shoot, what do I do? And it was like my first thought was Sparkly, which I don't really use it a ton. It's more so like I love having like the sparkly lettering and on my shirts and stuff, and just have it a part of my brand. But no one really calls me that, but it's a piece of my kids from coaching gymnastics.
There couldn't be a more fitting nickname. I mean, it just seems to encapsulate your personality, I guess.
I love all of the sparkly things. And then a lot of people also think they refer to my freckles, but it's just a name my kiddos gave me, and so I love that, because I ended up quitting coaching gymnastics because I started working with the Department of Defense, with Army, Navy, and Air Force, teaching them obstacle training all over the world. And so I ended up, leaving my job coaching gymnastics about 2.5 years ago. And so it's a way for me to kind of hold on to those coaching days, because those kids, they mean the world to me.
Man, I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
I know.
Hopefully we can get you back on maybe sometime later in the year after the book comes out.
Yeah.
Barclay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thanks, guys, for listening. Everyone have a great afternoon. Thanks again. This is awesome.